What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Into Deep, a podcast with me, Alyssa. In this podcast, we go a little too deep into everything feminism, from psychology to society to reality TV. Yeah, reality TV is what this episode is about. Sorry if I sound a bit crazy. I'm really sick right now, but guys, this is episode 4 and I have to put it out on a Saturday. Anyway, yeah, this episode we're talking about reality TV, but I guess more specifically relationship-based reality TV shows and the impact that they have not just on women, but also on real life relationships, and how reality TV shows are obsessed with women's suffering. So I just want to start thinking about the volume of relationship-based TV shows. Obviously they prey on women's insecurities and our socialized obsession with finding a relationship, particularly when women have to put in so much effort to be appealing to men and men literally just do nothing. And I'm sure you know a lot of the dating reality TV shows that exist right now, but let me list some for you. Maybe you'll learn some new ones here as well. Married at First Sight, which is actually what we're going to be talking about a lot today. If you haven't seen, the new season of MAFS is in Australia right now. The Ultimatum, Dating Naked, Too Hot to Handle, F-Boy Island, Love Island, Love on the Spectrum, Love is Blind, Love in the Jungle, Dated and Related. Now, I don't know what that means, but that scares me. 90 Day Fiancé, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Ex on the Beach, Beauty and the Geek. Actually, maybe scratch this whole episode because I remember Beauty and the Geek being good. But I also watched it when I was 12, so I don't know if that's a correct memory or if my opinion as a 12-year-old would have been correct. Farmer Wants a Wife. That one actually potentially the worst one. Date My Mom. Wait, spelled with an O actually. Date My Mom. Don't know what that one's about either. Gay, Straight or Taken. MILF Manor. Gay, Straight or Taken, also kind of a good one. It's this woman with all these men in a house and she has to figure out if they're gay, straight or taken. Actually that, no, I kind of like that actually. Honestly, it's not even dating shows that are problematic. I think what inspired this episode was obviously all the MAFS stuff going around right now, but also I watched the first episode of The Block when it started. I think it's still going now. I don't know if the season's finished, but every single pair on that show was a young couple, and that didn't sit right with me. Actually, not every single one. I think there's also 2 male friends, but it was just so, the main issue I had with it was that it was so boring when every single contestant on the show is just a heterosexual couple. That's so boring. That does not make good TV at all. And what is this? Getting married early propaganda? I don't even know. It made me feel so weird. Every single contestant came out and it was just another young couple. I'm so bored. Where's the Amazing Race level of diverse relationships? They've got mother and son, I don't know, anything. Why is everyone a young couple? That is so boring. And not only is it boring, it's just they were all so epitome of expectations of Australian couples. Oh, I think it was really bad. And then I never watched another episode. So Channel 10 lost me there. They lost one viewer of The Block, and I bet they regret that. I kind of split this episode into 2 categories, I guess. There's issues on screen with reality TV shows, and then there's also issues that can translate off screen. And I guess this doesn't include every reality TV show. I was reading one of the articles and it was obviously MasterChef isn't problematic. And then I was but I feel MasterChef, you can't really consider a reality TV show. MasterChef, that's fun. It has a good concept. Or Great British Bake Off. Yeah, I want to watch that. And no one's getting hurt by that show either. I feel shows like that, they're less likely to make someone out to be someone crazy or feed into arguments and make things dramatic through relationships between people. It's more likely to be oh my god, she burnt her souffle. And like that's where the drama comes from, and that's why I feel like shows like that are okay and they're not like hurtful to people, as opposed to a lot of the other reality TV shows, and as opposed to every single dating reality TV show, because they're literally all awful. I found one article from Link newspaper titled "Dating Shows Have Killed My Perception of Love," and I guess it talks about how difficult the dating scene is now, which the article mentions as being a problem of both social media and entertainment companies. And I will say that I think social media is the main problem, and also dating apps as well. Yeah, I don't think there's any coming back from either of those things in terms of relationship dynamics. But it is honestly insane how horribly men treat women that they're supposedly interested in like people in their like 20s age group, I want to say. The lack of like communication skills, which is a great thing for views and engagement on TV, but in real life, that is so damaging and awful. And I feel like every man, the way he treats a woman that he likes is just by being mean to her. What is up with that? And every time I'm being mean to a man because I hate him, it comes across as though like I'm interested. Why would I be being mean to someone that I'm interested in? Even as a friend. Like, what the hell? I don't understand like where that comes from. And I know that's that book, I think it's from 2002, called Men Love Bitches. And it's literally about how men are more attracted to women when they're being mean to them, which I don't know what part of socialization induced that, but yeah, I mean, you can see it in like most relationships between men and women these days. And it's, yeah, people who are in situationships, like that man hates you. There's actually no other way to word it or get around it. That man hates you and wants you dead. Anyway, I feel like I've digressed from the original point, but this article also talks about MILF Manor, which is genuinely insane. If you haven't heard about it, it's like mother and son duos in a house, and all of the mums are trying to find love with each other's 20-ish-year-old sons. Which, like, what the hell do you mean by that? And I feel like that's the same issue when they keep making all of these new dating shows and they just have to keep getting crazier every time. I also remember that one that was on Netflix where everyone was wearing, like, I don't even know what it was. Like, everyone was in, like, animal cosplay. And at the end of the show, they, like, revealed themselves from their animal. Like, whatever the hell that was, but they have to just keep getting more extreme and crazy to get more viewers. And not only is MILF Manor crazy, that's also such a bad depiction of age gaps. What really pisses me off is when, I mean, and it's not the women's fault either, and obviously in this circumstance, it's opposite, like women are trying to find younger men. But girls like my age who either say things about wanting to find someone who's rich or wanting to like date an older man, that is so dangerous because it opens up the opportunity for you to be taken advantage of, either financially or, I mean, typically it is financially, because if you're dating some guy who's like 35 and has an accomplished career, how can you ever be equal in that relationship? It's not even necessarily about the age gap, although that obviously goes into it as well, because someone who has lived for like 15 years longer than you obviously has much more life experience and will manipulate that fact. But you never want to be in a relationship with a man who is like financially dominating you, because how are you supposed to get out of that as well? Nowadays especially, both people in a relationship should be working. If you're a woman and you don't have your own financial security, then like that's such a dangerous situation to be in, and that just leads to problems with emotional abuse and even like violence as well. And that's why it's such a big issue that you see like all these young girls on TikTok who are like, but I can always just marry rich. Like, I cannot tell you not to do that enough. Like, oh my god. So I feel like one of the main shows that is so popular right now, honestly, I've never seen it, and I had to do a lot of research for this episode because I don't watch any of these shows. And I was like, well, I need to like read about them because I don't want to watch them. I'm not putting my effort into watching like seasons of Love Island for this episode. But I think this article from The Conversation was about how Love Island and other reality TV shows are helping to normalize like emotional abuse and I guess just abuse in relationships. Love Island obviously is a pretty unhealthy depiction of relationships. I mean, I don't think anyone's looking to that show for like relationship advice, but it has an inclusion of typical lad culture and a pretty high degree of toxic masculinity. But the behavior of gaslighting came under particular scrutiny. This was a problem in the recent maths episodes as well. I mean, that show is essentially just like looking at people who are just wearing bikinis or men who are shirtless. But I feel like there's obviously a difference between a almost naked woman and an almost naked man in media, because obviously the woman is always going to be sexualized more. And side note, I mean, obviously the Kanye and Bianca Censori thing at the Grammys, if Kanye was also naked, I would have honestly appreciated that. I would have been like, you know what, that's a bit artistic. That's subverting something. When you're just having a naked woman next to you, what is that subverting? That's just reaching expectations that we already have of sexualizing women. That is not doing anything. And especially when, I think I saw a tweet about how Kanye can never be like subversive in fashion because he just still does things which uphold systems that we already have in place. Like, how is having a naked woman on the red carpet anything different to what the patriarchy would already expect? Also, what if they switch roles, guys? If Kanye was naked and she was fully clothed, like, that would be subversive. That would be cool. Obviously, in this case as well, it is a form of abuse. And I know people say that even before she was with him, she dressed in a way that was like really provocative or whatever. But I still think that like, even if he's not forcing her to do these things, I mean, obviously he's like the worst person alive anyway, so I'm not going to give him any points. But there's been a history of him dressing the people that he's with. I mean, it happened to Kim Kardashian and Julia Fox. So obviously, to a pretty high degree, he has a role in the clothes that the women he dates, like what they wear. And it also is a difference when a woman is choosing to do it without the push of a man that she's dating versus if she's dating a man and he's telling her to dress like this. Like, there is obviously a difference between that. There was another TikTok by a creator that I'd mentioned before, Cleo's World, where she was talking about the trope of the clothed man and the unclothed woman and how it's meant to be subversive of power dynamics and how the woman is eroticized and having power in that sense. But in a world where a woman being naked is seen as degrading, there is no power in that. And that's why it's like, how is Kanye saying that this is like a form of art to have this woman standing naked next to him and it's like a vessel for his art? But it's like, if you wanted to be actually subversive, but you would be using yourself as the vessel for your art. Like, you wouldn't be using this random woman. Also, side note, did you know that Bianca Censori has 2 degrees from Uni Melbourne? Yeah, whatever that means. So the dynamics of reality TV, back to this, wherein conflict is encouraged by introducing things like jealousy, legitimizes defenses like they deserved it. And especially with women in reality TV, they can get blamed for a lot of things, and if something bad happens to them, no one cares because they've probably been made out to be a villain in the show already. And it's not ever that the woman is actually a villain in real life. It's just that she's probably been edited to look like that, or her emotions have been taken advantage of. And there's a quote from this article as well, where they said, watching ordinary people engage in physical abuse and psychological manipulation is possibly the 21st century's answer to a Roman blood sport. No, because literally. And a lot of that is just manipulated by producers and things to make it look even worse. In 2018, there was a contestant on Love Island called Adam Collard, and his behavior towards a woman on this show led to a charity called Women's Aid issuing a warning about spotting signs of abuse. He was essentially calling the girl he was originally coupled up with crazy for saying that he was attracted to a new bombshell in the villa, but she was literally right. Like, he admitted that he liked this new girl, but he was trying to convince her that she was crazy for thinking like that. So the chief executive of Women's Aid, Katie Ghosty, said, in a relationship, a partner questioning your memory of events, trivializing your thoughts or feelings, and turning things around to blame you can be part of a pattern of gaslighting and emotional abuse. And the thing is, I don't think the girl in the situation ever said that she thought it was abuse, but because of the way that it was shown on TV, the entire audience felt like it was like that. It did come out that there were parts of the conversation that were cut out, so producers were trying to make him look even worse than he already was. And I think he said a while later that when he saw it back, he was kind of shocked because they'd cut out like whole parts of the conversation, which contextualized it maybe a bit more. And the problem with that is that TV shows like this are an artificial environment, but because they're called reality TV, it kind of normalizes anything that happens on the show. And another issue that I've seen on reality TV, and I said this about the blog as well, like all of these young couples are either married or like engaged or talk about wanting to be married. It's like, why is marriage such a big part of relationship-based shows? Particularly when on these shows they haven't known each other that long. So when you talk about Maths or The Bachelor, where people are always expecting an engagement at the end, it's like, why is marriage being pushed so much? And I found an article by Tess Carlin Campbell titled, Why Are Reality Dating Shows Pushing Marriage as the Prize? And I mean, the author of this isn't even anti-marriage, like she herself is married. One of the main things that she attributes that to is the fact that The Bachelor started 22 years ago when the social climate was much different and when people were still getting married quite often in their 20s. So I guess maybe it made more sense back then for an engagement at the end to be the goal. Marriage was still kind of expected 22 years ago, I guess. But like nowadays, what is the point of that? Back then, dating apps as well were for like divorcees. And as she mentioned, they were on like a desktop computer. Like you had to like log into your PC to go on like a dating service. But nowadays, people in their 20s will use dating apps as like the first point of reference for finding a relationship. I don't know, and I don't think I've talked about this on this podcast yet, but marriage, I think, is one of the things which upholds the patriarchy to the highest degree. The expectation that women have to get married and that all relationships like aren't real until they're engaged or married. Particularly when you talk about like bachelor and bachelorette parties, it's like, my last night being single. It's like, no, you've been in this relationship for 5 years. You haven't been single. Like that is insane to me, referring to yourself as a bachelor when you're in a relationship with a woman. Like we need to actually make marriage illegal. You know, when they legalized gay marriage, you know what they should have done? They should have made all marriage illegal. If you want to have a better explanation of that, I mean, I'll do an episode on it, but there's a book by Clementine Ford called I Don't, The Case Against Marriage. I think probably one of the best books I read. I mean, it was good because it's not only like really funny, but it gives you a really good introduction to a lot of feminist theory and a lot of reasons why the patriarchy keeps getting upheld. I mean, marriage started as a legal agreement to own a woman in order to give a man children, right? You getting married and saying that it's different for you because your male partner isn't misogynistic or whatever, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, because you can't remove marriage from its original meaning, which was ownership of women. It's a legal framework to have people locked into a relationship, like so a man can own a woman and use her to have children. That's what it is, and you can't change the meaning of it just by doing it differently, by having a like non-traditional wedding, by not wearing a white dress. It's still marriage and it still has the same connotations. Do you know that meme that's like, everyone get more woke now? We should change that to everyone get more divorced now. Genuinely though, like with these dating shows, is it marriage propaganda to try and keep marriage popular, because a lot of people are moving away from marriage and having children, or if they're getting married, they're not having children, right? So I guess what inspired this episode for the most part was the recent debacle, which has been happening on maths. And this is mainly going to be talking about Tim from maths, everyone's favorite. Actually, what made me aware of this to start with was a post by the Batuta Advocate entitled "Maths Producers Strike Gold with Blokes Talking About Age-Appropriate Matches Again." And in the caption, it's like, they're sad about their being paired with an age-appropriate partner and not the 20-something Instagram model they clearly hoped for. Literally, I feel like that happens every season. And also, I've never even watched maths, but the amount that I see about it online, every single time, it's just the worst man you've ever seen in your life. And in every season, there's always like at least a few women who are going on there because they actually can't find anyone. They're like really desperate and they get paired with this guy who hates them. And of course that ties into the fact that reality shows love women suffering because the producers do that on purpose. It's obvious. And now, because I didn't want to watch all of the maths episode because I feel like that would be torturous, I was reading the Mamma Mia recaps of maths for this information. Thank you. In the first episode, this isn't even about Tim, but we had Elliot and Lauren, their marriage ceremony. How beautiful. So the Elliot rundown is that, I mean, he told Tim in the first episode that he's too overcaring. And just a quote from his vows as well, men should be men and women should be women. So true, Elliot. He gets paired with Lauren, who is a self-proclaimed trad wife. And you would think that that would be perfect for Elliot. Like, he wants women to be women. He wants women to be trad wives. And she, like, genuinely believes that women exist to serve their husbands. To quote from her vows, "I hope for a partner with class, pride, and who is innately masculine and driven to provide and protect." Wait, because they seem like they're perfect for each other, right? No, I'm pretty sure Elliot didn't like her because she was too career focused. The trad wife was too career focused. Like, he didn't want a career woman. I don't even know what to say about that. In the second episode, we are introduced to Tim and Katie. Katie admits that she has some self-confidence issues, especially about her weight. And because of her past relationship experience, she is just seeking a kind person. That's all she wants. She has one criteria. She's just seeking a kind person. Guys, I hope they give it to her. I hope she gets a nice guy. Oh, and she gets matched with Tim, who apparently doesn't have a type, and he's a self-described nice guy. Oh my God, Katie, you are in luck. I'm just kidding. That is the scariest sentence a man can say. He's a self-described nice guy. He needs to never be let out into society. A good quote from him in his vows: "I'm a bit of a soft soul. I fear sometimes that I can be too much the nice guy. I'm hoping my wife will see that as a really good quality." Immediately after the ceremony, he walks away, says, "What the fuck?" finds a producer and tells them that he requested a short, petite blonde. Why does he have this woman who is short, has light-colored hair, but isn't petite? What the hell? He requested a short, petite blonde. I can't believe they did this to him. Meanwhile, he is not petite himself. So I don't really know why he has the audacity to ask for a petite woman when he himself is not petite. Also, using the word petite is freakish. Like, if he wants to say skinny, then he should just say skinny, because petite sounds really weird. Petite sounds childlike, I won't lie. And when you have all of these men going onto the show and they're asking for petite women, like, ugh. It's really gross. Katie, who actually has communication and perception skills, attempts to talk to him during the, what's it called after the wedding when they like, reception. Can you tell I don't know anything about weddings? Because he literally won't look at or talk to her, and he again gaslights her into thinking she's crazy. What's new? Later in the night, he says that there's no spark between them, which Katie rightly says is actually him just, he's being too scared to say that he doesn't find her physically attractive. And then I think in the end of that episode, she's just like crying nonstop. Anyway, we jump forward to the honeymoon episode. Katie is trying so hard to have a normal conversation with this guy, but he literally hates her. Like, he makes her cry for the 100th time as they just like talk in circles. She is trying to get him to admit that the physical attractiveness is the problem, and he keeps being like, I never said that. But like, if he's consistently saying that he wanted a petite blonde, then you are telling her that you don't find her physically attractive. Like, that's what that is. And I feel like that happens all the time when men are like, I actually didn't say those exact words, so you're crazy. When it's like, but you did say that. Like, I don't know, gaslighting 101 from Tim. After the honeymoon, he ghosts her and then is confused why she never reached out to ask if he was okay. And they asked him, and they were like, well, why didn't you reach out to her? And he says that he doesn't have her number. I actually can't. So dinner party time with the couples, right? Everyone already hates Tim because of what they've heard about him. But Katie literally asks them to not be too mean to him. Like, oh, Katie. It's so sad. Like, he's so awful. So everyone's like asking him about how he feels about Katie at the dinner party. And he says that he thinks he's made the most effort in the relationship. So Katie like asks him about his type again, and he still like refuses to say anything. He tells her that he feels betrayed and gaslights her into thinking she's done something wrong, and she apologizes to him and cries again. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's another bride, Lauren, who like actually stands up for her, which is good. But he gaslights her into thinking that she's the problem to the point where she apologizes to him when he's been like the worst person alive. The producers have just like destroyed this woman's confidence even worse than it already was, when she already said that she had self-confidence issues, and then they pair her with this crazy guy. Literally a tale as old as time, though. Even girls with high self-esteem can get destroyed by guys like this. It's just like, who gives him the audacity when he looks like that? Sorry, no offense to Tim, but seriously, kind of is a success story though. I still feel like so bad for Katie, but Tim is like crashing out big time. He's like completely cut ties with the show. People have found out that he was using pictures from when he was younger to catfish people on dating apps, and then they would meet him and he would look like 10 years older. So there's so many stories about him coming out from like people who know him in real life, and I'm like, but that's the thing as well, like the producers have not only destroyed this woman's confidence, but they've probably made him look even worse through the way in which the show was edited, on the way in which they decided that they wanted it to go. But I mean, in this case, obviously everyone is on Katie's side because they've made him look like so bad. But there's still somewhat a obsession, as I said, with female suffering. There's an article by Jessica Thomas that I found titled Reality TV's Obsession with Female Suffering. And this one uses the example of the show Teen Mom, which, thinking now, why the hell did that exist? Why were they like going into these teenage moms' houses and making shows about them? That is crazy. And typically on these shows, the girls were extremely poor, like to the point where they could barely afford food and necessities each week. Meanwhile, they're being filmed by MTV, one of the biggest networks in the country at the time. And in the show, a lot of these girls suffered from drug addiction, homelessness, and depression. But the producers just did nothing to step in because it made for good TV, essentially. Other shows as well, like Real Housewives, really focus on catfights between grown women, while most of the cast themselves would consider themselves like girl bosses, because they're all like these rich women, either through marriage or through making their own money as well. But these shows make women out to be like so competitive with each other, and they make it seem like all women just hate each other. Like there's no friendships or any kind of solidarity. And I guess this kind of ties into like girls who say that they're friends with boys because they're less drama. And that's literally what it is. I feel like in the early 2000s as well, that was a really big thing. Making women out to be like super catty. Female friendships always just having so much drama and like fighting, and especially over men as well. In one of the seasons of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Taylor Armstrong was being actively domestically abused by her husband while filming. And though the producers didn't know about this, she would constantly have breakdowns and was like very clearly struggling. And regardless of the fact that they didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, there should have been some degree of compassion to this woman who was like very clearly struggling. But once again, because it made for good TV, they didn't do anything about it. I found another quote from this article by Ava Razavi titled "Let's Talk About It, Women's Portrayal in Reality TV." This is a pretty long quote, but I feel like it kind of epitomizes what I've been saying. "These shows seem keen on only showing women at their worst points. Last time I checked, this false portrayal of women isn't really in line with the whole reality aspect that these shows are trying to put forth. They begin to set in place an idea of women in viewers' minds that is entirely false and instead cultivated to portray an unlikable persona. Women cannot continue to be categorized as one-dimensional gold diggers who are desperate, boy-obsessed, and ditzy based on their depictions in reality TV." And once again, I feel like that is such an early 2000s thing as well. If you remember that show with Paris Hilton where she used to go do like physical labor jobs and they would just make her out to be so stupid. And I mean, I know in real life, like she's not, like that's kind of just all a character, but still it makes women out to be stupid and reliant on men and also obsessed with boys and things like that. And I feel like that was such a big thing in the 2000s, even with characters. And I feel like it was always the blonde characters, like even in High School Musical, like Sharpay Evans, that kind of trope was so big. And this article also bring up how Black women are treated even worse. This is a quote as well. "Too often the casting team only brings on one Black woman, almost as if they're trying to fill a certain tiny quota. They are treated horribly and their image is manipulated to fit the angry stereotype. How many times was Holly Hatcher-Frazier in Dance Moms called hysterical for not wanting her daughter to only dance ethnic dances?" Literally, if you look at any of these shows, especially in the 2000s, it was always like the one Black woman and they make her out to be super angry, and it's just such about stereotyping as well. So there's so many other problems which come with it. Pivoting to the kind of, I guess, off-screen problems that reality TV shows can have. One of the main, quite obvious things is that women who are on reality TV shows are much more likely to get hate online. And this is an article by The Guardian. 26% of tweets mentioning a female Love Island contestant were abusive, compared with 14% of those of a male participant. So it's disproportionately women, but especially women of color. And that is, honestly, the craziest thing about that is that it's usually the men who are awful on these shows, but they're not getting the same degree of hate because I feel like that it's kind of expected for men to act like that. Either people have lower expectations of men, so they don't really care if they're being awful because that's just how men are, or again, it's just misogyny against the women. As said in this article, women are likely to be characterized as mentally unstable, over emotional, evil, annoying, or attention seeking, and are likely to be victims of extreme sexualization and objectification. As I said as well, like on Love Island, it's not the same for a woman to be only wearing bikinis for the whole show versus a man being shirtless, because the degree of sexualization that they're experiencing is not the same. And also, men are often attacked for emasculating behavior, so they're characterized as weak, pathetic, or soft. So the attacks that men are receiving are not even based on their negative behavior. It's not even like these men are getting called out for valid reasons, like their treatment of the female participants or whatever. It's because they're being too emotional that they get called like not masculine enough. It's like that's not even a valid reason to be hating on them. So also in relation to this, just before I filmed this episode, there was this thing on Twitter from one of the dating TV shows. I don't know what country it's from, but it's in Spanish and it's like Temptation Island. And pretty much it's like this one couple, the girl is sleeping with another guy and the original guy like sees it on video and he starts running through the water, like falling on his knees, like screaming and crying, and he's like, ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? And like it's funny, but I'm just imagining like if a woman was reacting like that, she would not be treated the same. Like everyone is on this guy's side, right? And everyone's like acting like the girl is a whore for sleeping with another guy. But I feel like if a woman was reacting like that, there is no way that she would be getting the same treatment as this guy is. So anyway, that's another instance of it happening. There was actually a viewer response, I guess, survey to reality television in Australia by the Australian Communications and Media Authority in 2021. So 50% of Australians watch reality TV show actively. Almost 70% were concerned about potential negative impacts on viewers, and 40% were concerned that programs could be distressing for people who have experienced domestic or family violence. 40% of people agree that there is a degree of like abuse in these shows, particularly in dating shows. And in this survey, they found that a potential way to combat that would be increased protections like disclaimers for content being edited to look a certain way, or disclaimers for bullying or unhealthy relationships. And a lot of the responders had an interest in that. I think particularly when you're talking about content being edited to look a certain way, there's never any confirmation of that actually being true. So you don't know if it's been made out to look that way or if that is actually what happened, or you just have no idea how the producers are shaping the show to be a certain way. And so adding a disclaimer for that could be helpful as well, to make people realize that it's not something that's can be made to be reality. There was also another paper I found from the University of Alberta titled "The Perception of Intimacy: Are Dating Reality TV Shows Affecting Relationships?" So this was research into the effect reality shows have on determining one's perception and engagement in intimacy. I guess the problem that they noted was that intimacy has pivoted from local and interpersonal interactions between partners to a global and interpersonal event shared with the world. And that's not only through reality TV, I'd say it's particularly through social media as well. But because reality TV is labelled as reality, it does actually impact people who watch it, as the lines can blur between TV and reality, essentially. And obviously that's a big issue when producers are driving the content a certain way. So as I said, reality TV did start in like the late 90s, early 2000s with shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and Real Housewives. But even in those shows, when it's not like relationship based, I'd argue that as soon as there's a camera involved, it can't be a depiction of real life, because you always change yourself in front of a camera. But reality TV became even more popular with the inclusion of supposed like regular people, which allows people to feel more connected to them than they would, say, a TV character or even someone like one of the Kardashians. Like, you don't actually feel really connected to this person because you can't relate to them. So with the inclusion of ordinary people in reality TV, that's kind of what skyrocketed the popularity. In dating shows, intimacy is transformed into a digital and communal concept, right? You're not only obsessed with your own relationship, but also the relationship of others. And this also happens with people in social media, like celebrity couples and things like that. And I think this could also be applied to film as well. I feel like rom-coms have done irreparable damage. Like, honestly, that sounds kind of crazy, but like when you're watching this content, it puts relationships at the forefront, like a love conquers all sort of thing. And it just further pushes the idea that without intimacy or a lifelong partner, life isn't worth living. It makes it out to be the most important thing. And that's particularly dangerous for women, because, I mean, I know so many people like this, women and men, who are my age, and they're constantly scared that they're never going to find someone. Like, you're 22, it's not that serious. But I think the issue is that people desperately need to decenter romantic relationships because they're not the be all and end all of your life. And realistically, you only feel that way because of the content that you consume. I'd say particularly through films, but I think social media makes it so much worse because you see real people in relationships that you feel like you want. And even if you are in a relationship, you'll be comparing yours to like this perfect one you see on social media, right? But I think especially for women, it's a really big issue because being a wife seriously gets like pushed down your throat from birth. And it's no surprise that women feel like they're nothing without marriage, or if not marriage, like a long-term relationship, because that's been taught your whole life, like that's what you should aim towards, like that's what your goal should be. Maybe a relationship would make you happier, but you should be able to be just as happy without one. Because I feel like if you focus your life on only being happy if you can find a relationship, you're more likely to settle for someone who treats you badly or is not a good person just because you want to be in a relationship. And people like that also tend to push away friends and community in favor of finding an entire community in one person. And when you're so focused on achieving a relationship as a goal rather than letting, like, I don't want to say like letting it find you, but like just being happy whether you have it or not, because it shouldn't be such a big thing. And if it's decentered, you're much less likely to settle for just anyone or have an unfulfilling situationship with some guy who literally hates you. Like, why are you spending time on a guy who hates you? In this article as well, there is such a good quote. It's talking about how reality TV shows, especially dating shows, are love washed, which is similar to whitewashing, where the good is exaggerated and the bad and uncertainty are downplayed or conflated into something less troublesome. For example, in 90 Day Fiancé in 2022, one of the female participants, Jasmine, is willing to stay in a relationship with Gino after he sends her nude photos to his ex-girlfriend. In her confessional clip, she states that she would rather stay with Gino than leave because he offers her love, which she perceives as rare. In other words, Jasmine is too in love with Gino to understand that his actions are incompatible with love. She downplays the bad, looking at it from an angle that makes her decision to stay with him more believable, relatable, and tangible. For example, staying with him means she will experience love and intimacy. And that's the thing, when it's a thing that is so focused, you're willing to just look past things that you don't like, which just like should not be what you're doing. Especially when women like this are looking past things in a partner that they want to have children with. Like, you want to have children with a man who doesn't respect you. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to turn out very well for you. But I think that's the issue, that it's so romanticized and people search for that in everything. That's honestly one of the main problems, I think, with dating reality TV shows, because especially things like The Bachelor and Maths, they make out marriage and relationships to be the most important thing, even though most of these shows don't show any relationship which is actually worthwhile. It's just like the huge focus on it and the sheer volume of shows that are based on relationships, which reflects how obsessed people are with them in real life. And I think it is such a bad thing, because I think it's particularly like countries like America and Australia who focus so much on finding a partner rather than finding any form of community. And you can't have all of your community in one person. You need to have a lot of people around you to live a fulfilling life, I feel like. And just having these shows which focus so much on finding one partner and one person who knows you and supports you, it's just really damaging. And especially for women, because it can end you up in such like dangerous scenarios with men who do not like you. I actually saw as well, just before I was filming this, I found it like such a good thing to say. There was an interview with Gracie Abrams. It was an interview with Cosmopolitan, not like super related to this, but there was one question that she was asked on, I think she was asked like what she wished she knew about relationships or something growing up. And she was talking about porn. She said porn is bullshit. It is dangerous, not real, and a performance. It's really dangerous for young people for that to be their introduction to sex, which like obviously not related to this episode, but I thought that was a really good thing that she said as well. And another thing that she was asked about was relationships as well. She was talking about healthy relationships, and she said, your life doesn't radically change. You just fit into each other in a way that feels positively challenging and deeply supportive. It's like a place to land. And she also said that I would rather be single for the rest of my life than feel uneasy in a relationship, which I feel like is the most important part. Like, people should be content with being single for the rest of their life, because if you're not, you are going to end up in a bad relationship if you're so obsessed with the idea of finding one. Like, it's like, it is a problem, especially for women. And In order to ensure your safety, you can't be obsessed with something like that, because the potential for it to turn out badly in a romantic relationship, especially in a heterosexual relationship with a man, if it's something that is like really central in your life to find a relationship, regardless of who the person is, the likelihood of it turning out bad is like so possible. So I think not only in this episode did I want to talk about the problem with dating shows and also reality shows in general, the impact that they've had on women, their obsession with women's suffering, and especially the impact that they've had on relationships, because I think especially recently there's been a lot of problems with that. Mainly, obviously, I was inspired by everything happening on maths, but I feel like there were a lot of other issues in different shows and below the surface as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, because I know this is a bit more of like a chatty episode, a little bit less research based and a little bit more like pop culture. But yeah, let me know what you thought anyway. I will see you next week. Have a lovely week. Goodbye.